Worldwide, 27 billion cameras are watching us. On our streets, at work, and in our homes. They capture things that seem impossible.
It defies the laws of physics.
Oh, this is unbelievable, man.
Experts carry out forensic analysis of these unusual events.
Now that's an explosion.
There's got to be something we're missing in this video. Something we're not seeing, right?
What else is going on here?
Coming up, in the Mojave Desert, a man is rattled by a snake.
Oh man, I don't know what this is.
We don't know what it is, it's in our airspace, and we need to find out.
In China, a delivery driver erupts into flames.
Did we just witness spontaneous human combustion?
Found in Russia, the body that defies biology.
It's really disturbing. It's dried up and desiccated and bizarre.
Oh, what the hell?
Near a mysterious temple, a catastrophic blast.
Boom! Massive explosion.
Is there a connection between this mysterious temple complex and this explosion?
A 3-foot-tall humanoid attacks.
It's like a little red demon from hell.
This is potentially as big of a find as landing on the moon.
And locals suspect ghostly manifestations in England's spookiest store.
All right, that's not possible. What's doing that?
Bizarre phenomena. Whoa. Mysteries caught on camera. What's the truth behind this? Strange evidence. Now, in the Mojave Desert,
Pull over or something.
a mysterious light pulsates in the sky.
Oh man, I don't know what this is.
It twists and turns against the wind as if powered by an inhuman intelligence.
Yeah, we're fully underneath the thing. There's no noise.
I mean, it moves almost like it's alive.
This is ground zero for unexplained UFOs.
So we don't know what it is, it's in our airspace, and we need to find out.
The Mojave Desert, Southern California, over 47,000 square miles. This is the driest desert in North America. But it isn't empty. This sparsely populated place is home to 2/3 of the Marine Corps training facilities and many secret testing installations. July 2019, just west of the city of 29 Palms, Cody Kennedy and his girlfriend Monica are on a mission of mercy.
We spend a lot of our nights when it's warm out going through the desert and finding rattlesnakes and other species of snakes in the road and moving them out of the way. So we're gonna let this guy go here. Just wanna make sure I didn't step on him. And it started to get too cold, so we decided to wrap up for the day and head home. It was very dark out, and then suddenly everything changed. We saw this bright light. I immediately took my phone out and started to film it.
Puzzled by what they see, they drive towards the light.
Here, slow down. Stop. I'm tired of seeing UFO footage that is just blurry and grainy and makes no sense. And so I figured I would try and be the one that changed that and see a UFO in the sky and get perfect video of it.
Yeah, we're fully underneath the thing. There's no noise. Figured if it was a drone, you'd hear it.
Even a drone in a windy situation will start wobbling, and it didn't seem like it would wobble at all.
Like, how is that a thing? How is there a ribbon just in the air? There's lights on it, it's not moving.
This can't be a plane, a rocket, or even a drone. It looks like a loose electrical cable, but it's far too high up, and cables don't glow.
It seemed unnatural, but yet controlled somehow.
Oh man, I don't know what this is.
When the light vanished, we were really weirded out, for one thing, because it had stayed lit the entire time from the road all the way through the half hour that we were watching it. And why would it just suddenly turn off when it hit the ground?
experts are baffled by what this weird undulating light could be.
It doesn't look like any kind of aircraft or other drone or anything. This one really doesn't look like anything we see on a regular basis.
I mean, it moves almost like it's alive.
This snake-like craft isn't unique. More have been reported across the country.
There have been examples of other incidents just like this, snake-like lights in the sky. There have been ones in Wyoming and in New York.
These things, whatever they are, haven't just been spotted on Earth. December 2nd, 1993, NASA's STS-61 mission films a similar weird object 369 miles above the atmosphere. Astronaut Story Musgrave reports a snake-like object strikingly similar to whatever Cody filmed in the desert.
This doesn't look like any technology that I recognize.
Can't quite wrap my head around what it could be, other than the obvious, hey, it's some sort of UFO.
What is this thing in the sky? It sounds crazy, but there are those who will think this is a craft or some other manifestation of non-human intelligent life. For those that are willing to consider such a possibility, this area is rich in sightings. Just 21 miles from here is Giant Rock, a 7-story freestanding boulder. In 1953, George Van Tassel, a former test pilot, claims that he was visited by an alien who showed him his ship. For decades, Giant Rock became the UFO capital of the world. Author Erica Lukes believes that the location the footage was filmed could offer a vital clue.
Interestingly enough, this took place in 29 Palms, which is an aerial testing facility, one of the largest in the United States.
29 Palms Marine Base covers over 998 square miles of desert. More than 12,500 personnel are stationed here, making this one of the most secure locations in the country.
And so it gives them ideal cover for their testing.
It makes perfect sense to me that the military could be testing some kind of advanced technology.
Could this be a novel military weapon? Space historian Amy Teitel knows the desert is an ideal location to test anything secret. The harsh climate and sparse population means there's little reason for prying eyes to be out here.
The Mojave Desert saw a lot of American nuclear testing during the Cold War. Now, though, it's where a lot of companies are working on spacecraft and rocket development.
Mojave Spaceport is home to more than 60 companies engaged in flight development, highly advanced aerospace design, and flight research.
So maybe this is something that's being developed, something experimental.
There's some very strange experiments being done here, but nothing that looks like this. Coming up, is this sky snake the work of man or an intelligence from beyond our world?
While the idea of reverse engineering a UFO may seem pretty out there, some people take the idea very seriously.
And why does this man just combust?
Explosions don't just happen like that.
A couple film a weird serpentine light writhing over the Mojave Desert. It's like no known craft. With no rational explanation, even scientists start to consider the improbable. From here, the Mojave stretches up into Nevada, where there are even more secret facilities. Best known amongst them is Area 51.
Area 51, of course, is where many people believe that the UFO that may have crashed outside of Roswell, New Mexico, was then moved where American scientists could reverse engineer the technology. While the idea of reverse engineering a UFO may seem pretty out there, some people take the idea very seriously.
Deep Prasad, the CEO of a quantum computing firm, has publicly stated his ultimate goal is to find and then reverse engineer a UFO. And he isn't alone in this ambition.
I've learned about a group of investors and technologists out of Silicon Valley that are looking to do exactly that. Reverse engineer UFO technology so that they can use it to push mankind ever further into space.
It seems impossible that alien technology could have fallen into the hands of the US authorities. But strange claims have been made since the middle of the 20th century.
Back in the 80s, Bob Lazar claims that he was hired to work on an antimatter craft that was reverse engineered from this alien technology that supposedly the United States government had at Area 51.
Lazar claims he was hired by defense contractor EG&G to reverse engineer alien technology held inside Area 51. He claims that this technique had already been used to develop lots of the technology we rely on today, like certain radios and superconductors.
There is a great deal of controversy about whether what Bob Lazar is saying is actually factual, or if perhaps he's spreading disinformation on behalf of the American government.
Lazar and others who make similar claims could have been spreading disinformation to throw researchers off the trail of real secret government defense projects, but none have ever mentioned a glowing snake-like craft.
There really is no viable explanation to this light in the sky.
But the fact that it's close to 2 military locations mean we can't rule out that it's some kind of military experiment.
Now, in an industrial city in China, a man erupts into flames.
Did he step on a bomb?
Is this the first confirmed case of spontaneous combustion?
Boom, instant flame. The whole truck's engulfed, the guy's engulfed, everything's burning.
Is every human a ticking time bomb?
It's just one spark. Could cause a massive explosion. Scary thought.
Dongguan City, China. This industrial hub is known as the world's factory and is home to the Made in China label. 75% of its 8.3 million inhabitants are migrant workers living in dormitories. January 22, 2019, a week before Chinese New Year and the start of the largest human migration on the planet. Almost 3 billion people head home to see their families. A warehouse security camera captures 2 workers finishing loading a truck with rolls of packing material when the unthinkable happens. When the man's foot hits the floor, he is immediately engulfed in flames.
It's just not natural. Explosions don't just happen like that.
Experts are baffled by what they have witnessed.
I've never seen anything like this.
Viewing the footage, author Patrick Tomlinson is reminded of a controversial phenomenon widely reported in both fiction and in the press.
Did we just witness spontaneous human combustion? The theory dates back decades, and as the name suggests, it says that humans could simply catch fire for no apparent outside cause.
Spontaneous combustion is a subject of controversy among scientists. While everything explodes for a reason, that reason may not be obvious, and there are more than 200 reported cases of spontaneous combustion. Victims' bodies are burnt so severely that they are reduced to ashes, but bizarrely, their extremities remain intact. Biologist Leslie Samuel believes that if spontaneous combustion was possible, then it would need to be under a very specific set of conditions.
Number 1, the object has to be heated to ignition temperature. Number 2, the heat building up inside of it can't escape. And number 3, if it's exposed to a steady stream of oxygen, but it's not enough to cool it down, you get spontaneous combustion.
On December 22, 2010, the body of 76-year-old Michael Faraday was found in his home in Galway, Ireland. His charred remains were in the sitting room. The only other damage was burns to the ceiling above him and the floor below. After a thorough investigation, the coroner ruled the cause of death as spontaneous combustion.
Spontaneous human combustion could be possible thanks to the gases that we create within our own intestinal tract. Methane is a highly flammable gas and could easily create an explosion.
Coming up, a common household item that's primed to explode.
How many other containers that are running around on the freeways have got this sort of stuff in them?
And scientists fear creepy new creatures are being created.
Could this have come into contact with radioactive waste?
A man loading a truck in a Chinese industrial hub unexpectedly erupts into flames. But when civil engineer Brian Walshin studies the footage closely, he believes the source of the fire isn't the man himself.
We can see that the explosion and the flames themselves are contained within the truck. We can also see clearly when the man jumps out of the back of that trailer that the flames are clearly behind him.
But what could have fueled such a volatile explosion?
In investigating a little further, we find that in the back of the truck, this material is pearl cotton, and pearl cotton is used as a packing material.
Pearl cotton is one of the most common types of packaging. It's not real cotton, it's a plastic. Butane gas is used as a blowing agent in its manufacturing. It is forced into the plastic when it's a liquid, puffing it up. The puffier it is, the more it will absorb impacts and keep the item safe. But as pyrotechnics expert Matt Kutcher knows, butane can be highly volatile.
So one of the products we use in Hollywood, especially to do combustible type explosions, is the small butane bottles. We fracture them at a high rate of speed. We then ignite the gas that's coming out and make beautiful fireballs that chase people into buildings or chase them down corridors.
Although butane gas is used in the production of pearl cotton, any trace of it should be long gone before it is packed into a truck. Chemist Mike Sansom wonders if the timing, right before New Year, could be significant.
They cut a few corners or it's come straight out of the factory and that butane, that flammable gas is still there.
But even if traces of butane had been left on the pearl cotton after it left the factory, one vital piece of information is missing.
So there's no obvious source of ignition. There's no cigarettes, there's no naked flames that you can see. So what caused the spark?
When Sansom zooms in on the man, he notices that his foot gets stuck inside the plastic covering and suspects this could hold the answer.
This guy is suspended in the air, so he's got no grounding whatsoever, and he's moving around, and he might be wearing synthetic clothes, or he might be rubbing against the packaging, and that could create some sort of static spark.
But could the spark from static be enough to cause this explosion? Electrical engineer David Wallace designs an experiment to find out.
So here we have a Van der Graaf generator. Now this is also known as an electrostatic discharge generator. And what I'm going to do is to use this to mimic what we see in the video. Now as I bring this one closer to it, we get a static spark.
After generating a spark, he replicates the conditions in the truck by setting up a bottle with limited ventilation and places 2 electrodes inside.
This electrode is going to represent the man, or the positive charge. This electrode is going to represent the bed of the truck, or the negative electrode. I have a can of butane here.
Wallace fills the container with butane gas to represent the buildup in the back of the truck.
At this point, we'll energize the machine, and let's see what will happen.
As soon as the static spark is triggered, it instantly lights the butane gas and erupts in a fiery torrent.
So it looks pretty good. We had a spark, we ignited the gas, exactly what we thought. This mimics exactly what we see in the video.
We all build up static electricity on a daily basis. Usually this results in nothing more than a small shock, but occasionally it can prove fatal.
If you're sitting inside your car getting ready to fill it up with gas, as you come out of the car, you rub across the seat, you build up a static charge. As you touch that body of your car, you create a spark.
The man in the video was lucky and escaped with minor burns, but China accounts for almost half of the container imports to the US.
How many other containers that are running around on the freeways have got this sort of stuff in them? Have got this explosive gas? And it's just one spark. Could could cause a massive explosion.
If there was no way for this gas to escape and it was lit, it would have been a bomb. That truck could have been going down the street. It completely exploded and wiped out who knows how many humans.
Now, on the bank of a Russian river, an unearthly creature.
Oh, what the hell?
Its twisted form doesn't resemble any known animal.
Are we looking at some sort of genetic experimentation?
Experts ask, is a malevolent force at work here?
It looks kind of demonic.
Sosnovyy Bor, 43 miles west of St. Petersburg. This town was built in 1958 to house workers for the new nuclear power station. It is so close to the classified facility, you need a special permit just to enter. August 30th, 2015. A local man discovers a small creature of some kind. It looks like a newly hatched baby of some species, but of what?
Ugh, what is that thing? It doesn't look like any animal I've seen before. It's really weird.
This doesn't correspond to any known creature on Earth alive or extinct. Scientists do occasionally find new kinds of fossilized dinosaurs, but they're always variations of those we already know. This thing is different.
Everyone's seen the movie Alien, where this kind of looks a lot like the creature that pops out.
Experts are baffled as to what this animal could be.
I've never seen an actual animal kind of look like that.
It's really disturbing. It's dried up and desiccated and bizarre.
Biologist Craig Zolgit considers if the location where it was shot could offer a clue to the creature's origin.
This was found near the Leningrad nuclear power plant. And when you think nuclear power plants, you start to think, well, are there some kind of crazy mutations?
Everyone who's ever seen a superhero movie will know that radiation causes cell mutation, but in real life, those effects can be horrific.
Radiation can cause, well, cancer on a basic level, and that's a mutation. That's where your cells don't grow how they should be. They grow wildly out of control.
Could this have come into contact with radioactive waste?
Is this some kind of mutant?
But for this creature to be a nuclear mutant, there would need to have been some sort of accident.
There are a few different ways in which you can have accidents with a nuclear power plant. The worst would, of course, be a meltdown. But you can also have chemical spills coming out, which could leave nuclear waste in the environment.
The safety record at the Leningrad nuclear power plant has been spotty to say the least. It has had a long history of mishaps and outright accidents since it came online in 1975.
In 1976 and in 79, there were fires, and the water used to extinguish the fire did leak out into the environment. Much later, in 2015, there was a steam pipe that broke. So there have been contamination issues in this area.
Could some sort of creature have been unfortunate enough to have encountered some sort of high-level radioactive source and been mutated or changed by it?
Coming up, could the twisted form be a man-made monster?
Are we looking at some sort of genetic experimentation?
Just like keep getting bigger.
And Beauty and the Beast above the skies of Costa Rica.
Should these people be running for their lives?
An unknown creature is found in western Russia. It doesn't match any known animal, alive or extinct. When entomologist Kevin Kasky studies the footage, he thinks this demonic-looking creature could have been made on purpose.
Looks like the head of a dinosaur on the body of a chicken with the body of a snake.
Kasky wonders if this disturbing creature is a chimera, the result of humans tampering with nature.
Bioengineering is something that mankind has been messing with for decades, and probably even longer than that, but documented proof. We think that we can create things out of things that already exist.
There are many hybrid creatures in nature. The most famous is the mule, the progeny of a horse and a donkey. But there are many others, like the liger, the offspring of a lion and a tiger. Towering over its parents, this is the largest big cat in existence. But some scientists have tried to push the boundaries by merging two very different organisms into one.
This specimen is in Russia, and Russia has had a history of trying to mess with bioengineering things.
Western states generally limit scientists' ability to mess around with human genes. Not so in totalitarian regimes. The Nazis wanted to breed a genetic master race, and the early Soviets believed they could scientifically control the whole world, including the genetic makeup of living creatures.
In the early 20th century, the post-revolution government, the Bolsheviks, had an ideological reason for wanting to support these kinds of experiments. They wanted to prove that there was no God or soul or anything mystical about creating life, that it was a scientific, mechanical kind of a process.
One pioneering scientist and follower of Darwin is at the forefront of bioengineering in Russia, making major advancements in this area.
Ilya Ivanov actually experimented with crossbreeding animals using artificial insemination. Ultimately, his goal was to try and take characteristics from one animal and merge them with another.
Ivanov's radical crossbreeding program gave rise to the guinea pig mouse, cow antelope, and zebra horse. But his ultimate plan is to try and crossbreed a human with an ape to create a race of ape-man super warriors that would be invincible against enemy armies. Guinea, February 1926. The authorities discover Ivanov is planning to inseminate 3 African women with chimp sperm. He is expelled from the country.
Ilya Ivanov experimented with trying to create a new species. I don't care what your motives are for that. Nothing good can come from it. That's all I got to say.
Ivanov returns to the Soviet Union and opens a secret institute where it is believed he continues his twisted work. Stories of disturbing genetic experiments continue to this day.
The Russians have been working on a super chicken. I know it sounds like something out of a comic book, but they've been working on this to expand the food productivity of the chicken to help feed the Russians.
Russia imports a massive amount of chicken from the US, but after American restrictions following Russia's invasion of the Ukraine in 2014, things have been tense.
Relations between the United States and Russia have soured in recent years, leading to big cutbacks in food imports. Re-enter the super chicken. The Russian breed known as the Smena 8 is actually now available for market trials.
Could this creature be a failed attempt to create a super chicken? We may never know. The creature's body is taken away for examination by experts at the Institute of Biophysics in Krasnoyarsk. All they are saying is that whatever was found was some kind of unviable mutant. But this still begs the question, did nuclear mutation or human science have the final hand in its creation?
Are we looking at some sort of genetic experimentation that nobody wants to claim, nobody's doing, but once again, it's there, it's right there for all to see. What's the main purpose of it?
Now, a strange celestial disk appears in the sky over Costa Rica.
Look at the sky!
Heavenly indeed. That is cool.
Onlookers are mesmerized.
This is the most beautiful thing I ever seen.
I'd be a little bit more careful right now. We don't know what that is.
But could this strange vision be evidence of a deadly phenomenon?
There's something just a little bit weird about it.
San Jose, Costa Rica, nestled in the shadow of the Cerros de Escazú mountain range. The trendy suburb of Escazú, this is where the most affluent and influential Costa Ricans reside in luxury. September 2015. The people of Escazú are going about their business as usual. Suddenly, they are confronted by a spectacular sight above them.
Look at the sky!
This looks like a cloud and a rainbow had a baby.
It has amazing colors, but this isn't a rainbow. It looks more like a massive object than a cloud.
This is awesome.
Nature can do some wonderful things, but having a kind of disc-shaped rainbow like this is really phenomenal. I don't think anyone's ever really seen anything like this before.
Yeah, it just like keep getting bigger. Like, wow.
Experts are concerned that this may be more sinister than it looks.
It almost has the shape of a mushroom cloud, which doesn't exactly bring the happiest thoughts to mind.
Should these people be running for their lives?
Coming up, is death about to rain from the sky?
If there is fuel that was dumped from an aircraft, that's coming down to the ground, and that could be very terrifying.
And why is this paradise island crippled by crimson chaos?
Everything is blood red. Everywhere you look is red.
A mysterious celestial disk lights up the sky above Costa Rica. When physicist Chad Orzel analyzes the footage, he thinks the effect looks like something that is usually seen on Earth, not in the sky.
The pattern up there looks kind of like oil on water, when you see this sort of the swirling colors, when you have some pollution spilled on the surface of a puddle or a lake. And that's generally not a good thing.
Large commercial aircraft can carry over 150 tons of fuel when taking off. Exact calculations should ensure that they're at minimum weight on landing.
Well, airplanes are actually heavier during takeoff than landing because they burn through all their fuel. But sometimes, if an emergency landing needs to happen, airplanes can actually dump their fuel mid-flight. Now, when an airplane dumps their fuel, there are water molecules present in Earth's atmosphere. There could be some type of combination between the airplane fuel and the water molecules in the clouds.
It's the most beautiful thing I ever seen.
If there is fuel that was dumped from an aircraft and it was over a populated area, that's coming down to the ground. And that could be very flammable and very terrifying.
Could this bizarre phenomenon be the result of highly toxic fuel raining down to Earth?
If this were a fuel dump, you'd expect to see it in a line across the sky or some sort of linear pattern. But in this case, it's circular. It's following the shape of a cloud.
When you see a plane flying overhead, you see the straight line contrails. So if this was caused by a plane dumping fuel, it would be a straight line rainbow, not a disk.
Chemist Simon Foster has seen this kind of thing before in outer space. Could this be a genuine extraterrestrial phenomenon?
Rainbows are not just an Earth-based phenomenon. They do happen elsewhere. They actually happen out in the cosmos. If people have been looking through telescopes and found rainbows in space.
2013, NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory Space Telescope picks up strange, unexplained images.
There is this one image from the Chandra X-ray telescope that's called an extraterrestrial rainbow, and it's a system with a binary star, and one of the stars is a neutron star that's siphoning off material from the other star.
It's really dense and heavy, and it's drawing material off its other partner star, and as it's doing so, it's emitting X-rays. Now these X-rays are passing through dust and debris surrounding these stars, and as it does so, it acts almost like a lens, like water droplets in the atmosphere do to visible light. This is doing it to X-ray, and it produces this incredible interstellar rainbow. So it's incredibly beautiful, but the light is being produced by X-rays, so at the same time, it's deadly.
We know how damaging X-rays can actually be if you're not well protected.
X-rays are a form of ionizing radiation. Overexposure can lead to unnatural chemical reactions inside cells, causing mutations that lead to a number of diseases, such as cancer.
For this to have been some kind of space rainbow this close to Earth just doesn't work. The amount of radiation would be so intense, it would seriously injure or even kill everyone in the area.
Science writer Alan Shapiro reviews the footage and thinks he may have the answer.
Maybe the solution has something to do with the weather on the day. You've got a cloud with water droplets high in the atmosphere. You've got the sun lighting it up from behind. Again, the water breaking those colors out.
It's really similar to when you see water and oil interact and you get that kind of rainbow effect.
The best guess is some rare set of atmospheric conditions. Water vapor high in the atmosphere refracting light into a spectrum of colors.
To be able to see that firsthand would be incredible.
It's going to be 10 times better in real life.
It's just awesome.
Now, in the land of volcanoes, the sky turns blood red.
A burning hellscape turning the sky red.
This ominous crimson cloud engulfs everything in its path.
It must have been absolutely terrifying.
It's like a scene from a disaster movie, but for the people living there, this is everyday life.
Sumatra, Indonesia, a volcanic island mostly covered in thick rainforest with its own species of tiger and rhinoceros. September 2019, in a quiet rural community, a motorcyclist experiences an out-of-this-world sight.
The sky is blood red. This looks like something you'd find on Mars, not on Earth.
It looks like something out of Total Recall.
It's hard to explain this very bizarre and cataclysmic looking video.
It's everywhere. It looks like whoever filmed this is trying to get away from it, but there's no getting away from this.
It looks like a sandstorm, but this is a wet tropical island. There is no desert for hundreds of miles.
Everything is blood red. Everywhere you look, it's not like it's coming from one particular area. The entire countryside, everything around this person is red.
Driving through this red cloud, it probably felt like the end of the world.
Coming up, the apocalyptic sky with deadly consequences.
Bromine isn't something you want to be inhaling. At higher concentrations can lead to death.
The air above a volcanic Indonesian island turns blood red. Chemist Mike Sansom wonders if what we are seeing is evidence the air itself is toxic.
We know it's Indonesia, and Indonesia has the greatest concentration of volcanoes. So is it something to do with volcanoes?
Indonesia has 127 active volcanoes. This island alone has 67. It is situated on the volatile Ring of Fire, a 25,000-mile chain of volcanoes and seismically active sites that outline the Pacific Ocean. The region has 75% of the world's volcanoes and 90% of its earthquakes. Could these skies be a portent of another eruption?
Indonesia has the most volcanoes of any country in the world. Just 76 of them have erupted more than 1,000 times in our current records.
Mount Tambora, Indonesia, 1815. After a few centuries of dormancy, Mount Tambora unleashes the most powerful eruption known to man.
It sent ash and dust high into the atmosphere. That accounted for the deaths of more than 80,000 people.
The explosion can be heard 1,600 miles away. People are immediately burnt alive as they drown in the boiling lava. For others, death is more painful as they are poisoned by toxic gases and ash.
One thing we might expect if this were from a volcano was that you would have usually a lot of very black, dark ash, a big cloud that would be blasting out from the sky. We don't see that. But there have been volcanoes that have thrown out other strange colored gases.
Hawaii's Kilauea volcano erupted in 2018 and had a pink plume. And this came from the rock around it, the basalt, that had this red color and accounted for the pink ash.
Sansom has a theory as to what gases need to be present in Indonesia to create such an apocalyptic crimson haze.
One thing that could turn this volcanic eruption red is bromine. It's an element, a liquid element. And if you boil it, it turns into this brownish reddish gas, which looks exactly like the video.
Bromine is a naturally occurring chemical found in the Earth's crust, but when combined with heat, the molecular structure alters dramatically.
Volcanic eruptions can cause temperatures of thousands of degrees, and that's plenty of heat to cause the bromine to turn from a liquid into a gas.
Bromine isn't something you want to be inhaling. At lower concentrations, it can lead to coughing and shortness of breath, and at higher concentrations, can lead to death.
But Sansom isn't convinced that the flaming red heavens are caused by oxidizing bromine.
You'd need massive deposits of bromine. I mean, a huge salt plain of bromine to actually create this vast amount.
It would take something the size of the Dead Sea to cause a crimson sky like this, and there aren't deposits of that size in this area. But when chemist Simon Foster studies the footage, he wonders if the color of the sky could be the sign of a different kind of impending danger.
Different gases in different concentrations, they can actually bend light and split light in different ways. And that could be what's going on here.
This could be the same principle of sunsets, but you need to have exactly the right size of smoke or haze particle for this to happen.
Meteorologist Chris Waldrop believes that this apocalyptic sky could be caused by a huge quantity of smoke.
One of the ways you can produce this effect is with widespread forest fires that produce huge amounts of dust and smoke.
Wildfires are one of nature's deadliest killers. A raging fire on a forested island like this could be disastrous.
So if your island's on fire, where do you run that's safe? The fire's out of control. In California, they evacuate us to someplace that's safer, someplace away from the actual fuel. If you're on an island and the whole island's fuel, where do they evacuate you to?
Further investigation reveals this is a catastrophic wildfire, one of almost 4,000 that ripped through Southeast Asia between February to September 2019. This air was so polluted, it left almost 10 million people gasping for breath with countless deaths. This really was an apocalypse for these islands.
The smoke is horrible to inhale. There's the fire that's far too hot. There's fire tornadoes. There's nothing good that comes from being in that position.
It would have felt like the end of the world.
American travelers are leaving a revered jungle temple complex when nearby,
Fireball. It looks like a building has been torn apart.
locals and tourists are hit by the explosion.
We need to figure out what exactly this blast is, because whatever it is, it could be deadly.
The town lies in the shadow of one of the greatest wonders of the ancient world.
I think it's impossible to see something like that and not think about terrorism.
It was the real-life location of the first Tomb Raider movie. Angkor Wat in Cambodia is amongst the largest and strangest religious monuments in the world. Dedicated to the protector god Vishnu, whose avatars are believed by his followers to still be active in the world. The temple design is mysterious and complex.
It was a huge center for the technology of that time.
Angkor Wat sits just outside the city of Siem Reap. August 2019. American tourists are here to see the temple. And some are filming when just a few miles away.
Boom! Massive explosion.
The shockwave knocks motorcyclists off their bikes and sends people fleeing.
Oh, it's still on fire. Oh my gosh. That is terrible.
Imagine you're going about your daily routine and something like this happens. Something so disruptive, so explosive, so dangerous. A terrible event.
An American teacher is among those badly injured. There have been local rumblings in Siem Reap about Westerners visiting the temple complex.
This took place in a town which is actually only a few kilometers away from Angkor Wat.
The proximity to the temple leads to some wild and bizarre speculation.
It's believed that Angkor Wat once included 2 temples that were gold-plated, and they were gold-plated in order to capture the rays of the sun at key times of the year, the equinoxes.
The temples were built by King Suryavarman, who according to legend was a demigod, who used advanced geometry to lay out the buildings to mirror objects in space.
They could harness the power of the sun, effectively creating a ray, a powerful beam of light with destructive capability.
And so, is there a connection between this ancient, mysterious temple complex and this modern, mysterious explosion? Could there be some kind of lost technology that somehow is still active, somehow still dangerous, could still somehow cause things to explode?
But material scientist Doug Holmes believes the location of the blast could point to an act of terror.
I think it's impossible nowadays in this climate to see something like that and not think about terrorism. In a region like this that has been historically war-torn, you can't rule it out.
Cambodia borders Vietnam. In the early 1970s, the country is invaded by the Viet Cong. Despite American efforts, a communist dictatorship is installed, known as the Khmer Rouge. The party's leader is Pol Pot, whose methods are brutal and terrifying. The Khmer Rouge execute people just because of their appearance and use their bodies as fertilizer in the fields. The communists take and slaughter the children and babies of those who dare criticize them. Women are subjected to hideous medical experiments.
About 2 million people, about a quarter of the population, was wiped out by the Khmer Rouge under Pol Pot, who is remembered as one of the most vicious and deranged homicidal leaders of history.
Several of the Khmer Rouge's evil leaders have recently been sentenced to life imprisonment for their disgusting crimes.
Knowing it's happening in a place where there is a long history of conflict, you can't help but think, maybe these are kind of rebels, local terrorist groups, something that could cause an explosion like that.
So this is an area on the globe that we know has been under siege. This is the terrorist area. And this type of explosion resembles that type of attack.
Matt Kutcher has spent over 20 years as a Hollywood explosives and pyrotechnics expert.
Blow it! There's a little Hollywood magic today, right?
He wants to see whether the blast in the footage matches the blast produced by a bomb.
I think the first thing we do is we're gonna have to get some kind of shed, something to represent a building. We're gonna need some high explosive, and we're gonna see if we can't blow it up. Right there. Nice. We'll have the high explosive around this barrel, and we'll have some high explosive in the barrel. And to replicate everything we see that's blowing through the roof, blowing out the doors, we're gonna add the water inside of it, use the water as actually what devastates this building. All right, Ty, go ahead and fill her up. This type of high explosive is no joke. We're gonna have to stand pretty clear of this. And it's gonna blow this thing apart. Just one big bang.
Coming up, Matt Kutcher discovers if the blast near the temples was an act of terror.
3, 2, 1.
And in Indonesia, cameras capture what appears to be a humanoid scientists thought extinct.
It's like this little evil hobbit running around in the jungle.
An explosion near one of the greatest wonders of the world, followed by a lethal blaze. Pyrotechnics expert Matt Kutcher has built a terrorist-style explosive device to see if it matches the blast in the video.
All right, gentlemen, let's get to our firing positions. All right, guys, we are ready. We're gonna go hot, fire the horn. All right, and here we go. In 3, 2, 1. There's no question, it completely decimated that building. It did quick business of that, didn't it? And what it really looked like was there was no flash at all. It's gone. Absolutely gone. And not an ounce of flame.
The flames are only visible when Matt watches his explosion slowed down by 90%.
Although it looks very similar at the beginning, the mass transfer of energy, it's certainly missing something at the end, isn't it? In the video, you clearly see a sustained fire, as if there was something else in the building. So it couldn't be high explosives. We got to gain some more information as to what was actually in this building. What held the sustained fire? And is the sustained fire relative to what caused the explosion?
Engineer Adam Hadhazy wonders if the fuel behind the explosion could be gasoline. But government records show there were no licensed gas stations in the area.
Gasoline is a highly desired commodity pretty much anywhere you go in the world. And if you can make a buck selling it, someone's probably going to sell it then on the black market. So that could open up some possibilities here of bootlegged gasoline that could be behind what we're seeing.
Since 1979, the country has been ruled by the Cambodian People's Party, who took over after the Khmer Rouge. These Marxists have introduced some free market reforms, but they still levy punishing taxes, especially on the sale of gasoline. As a result, in some Cambodian cities, pirate gas stations outnumber legal gas stations by 2 to 1.
Now listen, Cambodia is a developing country. A lot of these things get kind of loosey-goosey in a developing country, and you can have situations where dangerous chemicals or substances are not handled in the safest possible way.
Unlicensed gas stations and street-side vendors selling gasoline out of bottles are a common sight throughout the country, leading experts to believe that the explosion occurred at a site where gas was being sold illegally.
Given that it's on a busy street, you can imagine this sort of place where you might have a gas station, perhaps an illegal gas station, perhaps somebody has paid some bribes to the local inspector, or someone is just cutting corners and doing things on the cheap.
This video serves as a warning of how dangerous something like an illegal gas station can be. When standards are skipped, then things like this can happen.
Now, on the exotic island of Sumatra, men entering the jungle on motorbikes come across a human-like creature.
It's like this little evil hobbit running around in the jungle.
Locals believe this may be the first filmed encounter with a legendary jungle-dwelling race of humanoid cannibals known as the Ibu Gogo.
The Ibu Gogo are 3 feet tall, are known to steal food, kidnap children, and even eat humans.
If this actually is a long-lost human cousin, this is potentially as big of a find as landing on the moon.
Sumatra, the 6th largest island in the world, sitting in the Java Sea in Southeast Asia. It is an island of deadly volcanoes and exotic animals, from dozens of species of amphibious creatures to rhinos, elephants, and tigers. The island stretches over almost 200,000 square miles and is largely covered in dense tropical rainforest, or at least it was. Sumatra is fast losing its rainforest as humans gradually transform the once impenetrable jungle into farms to grow much sought-after Sumatran coffee. March 2017, 4 young men are riding along a dirt path on their motorbikes. Suddenly, something leaps from the jungle. Its shape is similar to an adult, but it's much too small to be a man.
This naked man with a spear comes and attacks you?
It's like a little red demon from hell.
It's small, but it doesn't mean that it's not deadly.
A biker is knocked from his vehicle, and the creature flees.
It looks like the bikers surprised this thing. It attacked to protect itself and then thought better and ran away.
Historian Craig Gottlieb analyzes the video.
If you freeze the video, what you see is about a 3-foot-tall humanoid, an adult with musculature, standing butt naked in the forest and carrying a spear.
The average male human is 5 foot 9 inches tall. This creature is half the size, but it shows none of the characteristics of dwarfism.
In the jungles, there are legends of other types of beings. So could this be one of those subspecies or species that's inside the jungle?
Myths throughout the islands of Southeast Asia speak of evil human-like people that actually feast on humans and live in the forests. Could there be some truth to these myths?
Scientists have long known that on these islands once lived a distant cousin of humans, which archaeologists call Homo floresiensis, and nicknamed the Hobbits. Small bodies, small heads, and small brains. Remains of these small human-like creatures have been found and DNA tested. Although it was thought these hobbits had died out around 100,000 years ago, locals have long claimed that they still inhabit the jungles of Sumatra.
Local legends speak of these little evil beings lurking in the forest. Could this be one of them?
These legends and stories have been around for thousands of years. When people go missing in the forest, these creatures are still blamed. Could this be what we're seeing?
These legends may be more than mere fantasy. In 2017, archaeologists in Indonesia discovered cave paintings depicting weird humanoid creatures attacking animals. Further evidence emerges when scientists recently unearthed the remains of small creatures who do indeed belong to a strange race of humanoids.
The archaeologists uncovered the remains of a previously unknown species of primates, about 3 to 4 feet tall.
Locals call the jungle-dwelling creatures the ibu-gogo. Their appearance is said to be somewhere between human and ape. These tiny ape men are said to talk to each other in a strange murmur and can parrot back human words, but have no way of understanding what is being said. Their name Gogo means eats everything, and according to legend, they are cannibals. It's claimed that they have stolen human children, some say to learn the secret of fire. Others say to eat them.
This actually is a long-lost human cousin. This is potentially as big of a find as landing on the moon.
Coming up, the hunt is on for Indonesia's secret cannibals.
How many more of these people or creatures are there?
And what's going bump in the night at England's eeriest emporium?
When you see stuff falling off the walls, it's a sign to get out.
On the volcanic island of Sumatra, a helmet cam captures what appears to be a small human-like creature emerging from the jungle and wielding a spear. Science journalist John Farrow asks if this is a non-human species or a long-lost tribe of super small humans.
The jungle is so dense that there's lots of places that we've never been. And that raises the possibility that there are tribes of people that live unconnected with the rest of civilization.
Historian Tony McMahon studies a legendary prehistoric tribe, long thought to have died out.
About 400 years ago, a tribe called the Mante was sighted, a tribe in the jungle who had never made contact with the rest of humanity. For the Mante people, off-road bikes are going to be a complete mystery and, if anything, something extremely frightening.
The very small size of the person is hard to explain, but science journalist Steve Potbin recalls an indigenous tribe known for their small stature.
It makes me think, could this be a long-lost pygmy tribe?
Spanish colonists to this area hundreds of years ago spoke of a people they called the small ones. Pygmy tribes are found mostly in dense jungles, scientists speculate the lack of sunlight leads to a sustained lack of vitamins inhibiting bone development. But something doesn't make sense. Even so-called pygmies are taller than this. The average pygmy male is around 5 feet. This fuels speculation that this may indeed be evidence of a human-like creature from the age of the Neanderthals.
How many more of these people or creatures are there?
These people live a lifestyle untouched by modern civilization. Without electricity or the internet, they'd be following the same way of life that they have for thousands of years.
Isolated prehistoric tribes have been known to be aggressive when confronted by the terrifying and strange signs of modern civilization.
There's plenty of evidence of tribespeople all over the world defending themselves with primitive weapons against what they view as incursions by the outside world. In 2008, a light aircraft flew over a tribal village in the Amazon. The tribespeople who had had no or minimal contact with the outside world were actually firing bows and arrows and trying to shoot at the aircraft.
In 2018, on the Andaman Islands off the coast of India, a young Christian missionary was killed by bow and arrow when he approached a Stone Age tribe.
So that gives you an indication of the fear and hostility that some of these tribespeople have towards the outside world.
Indonesian government officials viewed the film and sent search parties into the area. But no tribe of miniature humans have been discovered.
We are none the wiser as to who he is, which tribe he represents, and how long they've been isolated from the rest of humanity.
The nature of the small humanoid caught on the helmet cam remains a mystery. John Farrow believes that may be for the best.
Modern civilization doesn't have a great track record of respecting indigenous people. And so perhaps we should leave this unexplained.
Now, England's spookiest store. Objects are moved.
Whoa.
And fall over as though pushed by unseen hands.
People are running. I don't blame them.
Locals suspect a cursed mine shaft 1,000 feet below the store could be sending something sinister up to the surface.
I've never seen anything like this before.
In the English county of Yorkshire is Barnsley, an ordinary North Country mining town. September 2014. In the middle of town is the Barnsley Antique Center. CCTV captures bizarre activity. A fog-like presence appears to seep up through the floor.
Wait, there seems to be something almost like a mist.
That would really creep me out if I was in this store.
A reign of terror follows. While the shop is empty, pictures fall off walls. Old glass cabinets shatter. And an antique rocking horse crashes to the ground.
When you see stuff falling off the walls, it's a sign to get out.
Store owner Daniel Parker and his 9-year-old daughter Casey have experienced even stranger things in the shop when the cameras have been turned off.
All of a sudden, my daughter's friend came running out, shouting, "Dan, Dan, Casey's crying in the basement, screaming and crying." I said, "What's the matter?" And she says, "An arm's just reached out to grab me."
I understand completely why somebody would think that there was a poltergeist in this shop. We do tend to see these kinds of things as being supernatural. Personally, I could think of other explanations.
Geophysicist Cyan Proctor looks into the mining history of the town and sees a potential explanation that lies buried 1,000 feet below the store itself.
To move objects like that, there has to be a force. But we clearly don't see one in the video. So maybe there is an invisible physical force at play here?
Coming up, does a mining tragedy that killed hundreds explain the Barnsley poltergeist?
This is potentially a ticking time bomb waiting to go off.
And Is an eerie beam of light over Canada secret communication with other worlds?
One reason scientists shoot lasers out into space is actually to signal to potential alien life forms on other planets.
An antique store in Yorkshire, England, is plagued by what seems to be an angry poltergeist. It appears as a mist and smashes and throws things from the shelves of the shop.
Something weird and unnatural is going on here.
The owner, Daniel Parker, investigates the history of his street and discovers bizarre activity hasn't just struck in his store.
There used to be a cafe just across the road, and they got someone in because they had weird things happening. And I think they got some sort of spiritualist group in to sort of rid their shop of spirits because things were moving in their shop.
Material scientist Doug Holmes believes this discovery suggests the footage from Parker's store doesn't show a ghost, but a vibration from below that affects the whole neighborhood.
You see this all the time in footage of an earthquake, in which you have these rumbling vibrations which cause all sorts of things to fall down, topple over, and break. And so a natural question is, well, what's the source of these vibrations?
Barnsley is a long way from an earthquake zone. But in the 19th century, this sleepy town was the center of a revolution. Newly invented trains and mechanical factories needed coal to power them, and Barnsley had huge amounts beneath it. Historian Craig Gottlieb discovers this boom time for Barnsley came at a heavy cost.
The history of coal mining goes back centuries in this area, and there have been many accidents and tragedies involved in the industry.
The antique store is close to the Oaks Colliery, a mine 1,000 feet deep.
Mining of this sort can be very dangerous because it releases a number of flammable gases.
In 1866, a massive explosion tore through the mine, killing 361 miners, some as young as 10 years old, and the rescuers who went in to save them. The devastating series of blasts caused by a mixture of gases, including methane known as fire damp, destroyed the mine. It was England's greatest mining disaster. The Oaks Colliery shaft is now abandoned and sealed. Some locals even say it carries a curse. Geophysicist Cyan Proctor suspects the explosive power of the fire damp in the mine below has not been totally spent.
We need to consider whether these small little explosions that are being caused by fire damp are actually the cause of what we see in this antique shop.
The weird mist filmed in the store could be a gas escape from the mine, and the falling objects could be being moved by the blast from deep down below. The vibrations felt across town may well be a warning of a much bigger blast that could threaten the whole community.
These trapped gases don't need much to explode.
This is potentially a ticking time bomb waiting to go off.
All you need is some kind of spark and boom.
It seems whatever the cause of these weird phenomena, the future doesn't look good for the store.
People have said they don't come in our shop because they've heard of the hauntings and spooky goings on.
Now, in the dead of night, a vertical shaft of light appears suspended in the sky.
This doesn't look like anything we've seen before.
It pulsates and terrifies local residents.
Kept thinking, something's coming, something's happening. This is just the start.
It seems to be ascending to, or descending from, space.
This looks really scary.
Edmonton, Alberta. A city of 970,000 people, with a shopping mall that's over 5 million square feet, making it the largest mall in North America. December 28, 2018, early evening. Writer Marina Reed Hale is relaxing at home.
was just a normal night like any other. I was watching TV.
But then, as Hale heads into her kitchen, she notices something out of her window.
It was this big glowing line in the sky.
Hale decides to film it.
It was just right there, completely vertical, really orangey, kind of pulsating slightly almost. It looked like something opening, you know, just that crack through a door that as a door was about to open.
The light is like nothing Hale or other residents in the town have ever seen.
I was thinking, oh, this is bad news, something's happening and it's not good. It really felt like you were about to see alien ships just rushing in, coming to attack, or something really bizarre like that.
As the strange bright light in the sky hangs ominously over the city of Edmonton, scientists are as baffled as locals by the phenomenon.
This is really weird. Where is this light coming from, or where is it going to?
It kind of looks like a kind of demonic finger of light, you know, appearing in the gloom.
This pulsating vertical light in the middle of the sky kind of reminds me of Independence Day, when the giant spaceship goes over the White House and then destroys everything.
Coming up, is the Edmonton light connected to a bizarre incident in space?
There was a kind of bright laser that had struck the International Space Station.
And does a strange frothing whirlpool point to a Japanese horror weapon unleashed after 80 years?
A strong possibility at work here is that this is some sort of explosion underneath the water.
In the city of Edmonton, Canada, a sinister pulsating light hangs in the sky. Science journalist John Farrow discovers this is not the first time such a beam has been captured on camera, and the last time was from space.
In December 2017, the year before this video was shot, there was a video making the rounds online that there was a kind of bright laser that had struck the International Space Station.
Cameras on board the International Space Station captured the strange beam of light. The footage was then broadcast to millions of Americans via the station's live video feed. To this day, NASA have given no official explanation for the occurrence.
The idea of a space laser really caught many people's imagination. And so when a mysterious light appears above Edmonton, people recall the year before the mysterious light above them on the International Space Station, and they start to connect the two.
Science writer Amy Shira Teitel wonders if the beam is an attempt to communicate with extraterrestrial beings.
One reason scientists shoot lasers out into space is actually to signal to potential alien life forms on other planets.
NASA is open about its search for life in and beyond our solar system. In October 2019, it announced its instruments had picked up noises on Mars, which it described as dinks and donks. The possibility of finally establishing contact with intelligent alien life is intriguing. Though in 2016, astrophysicist Stephen Hawking warned against the possible dangers of reaching out in this way. He claimed that if we make contact with intelligent aliens, they may not come in peace, but would invade and conquer us for our rich natural resources. Astrophysicist Hakeem Alushayi looks for possible causes for lights in the sky. He checks the records for that date and discovers a clue near the location where the phenomenon occurred.
There was a huge oil refinery fire, and it was very bright. And there was a huge flare-up that occurred, and given the fact that there are clouds in the sky that could scatter the light, under the right conditions, you could see exactly what we see in this video.
The refinery fire may have produced what meteorologists refer to as light pillars. These are caused by reflective ice crystals in the air, which are illuminated by a light source from the ground. But there's a problem with this theory. The beam in the footage looks wrong.
Usually when we see light pillars, there's multiple pillars, and this is only one.
There is still an element of mystery as to what's causing this light.
Marina Reed Hale, who filmed the light, is convinced this was no natural phenomenon.
The idea that it was caused by the refinery flares seemed a little too convenient. There was at least a part of me thinking that there was something more interesting than just some strange fluke.
Now, a weird foam erupts out of a river in a Chinese megacity.
Holy cow, that's a huge heart. What?
This thing is absolutely massive.
Experts fear a destructive Japanese weapon from World War II has accidentally exploded.
The fact that this looks like a chemical reaction, it immediately attracts my suspicions to Special Unit 731.
Hangzhou is China's answer to Silicon Valley, a bustling, technologically advanced city of 7.5 million people. October 17th, 2018. Office workers look out their windows to see a strange disturbance on the normally tranquil Chengteng River. The source is a circle of ominous bubbles, and the vortex spreads over an area of hundreds of feet.
This is really unusual. I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at.
As we zoom in, I realize that's not something floating on the water, but more like a froth that's generating around a whirlpool.
This is something you would not see on a daily basis.
All right, I need to see that again. That was crazy.
Coming up, locals fear a deadly legacy of World War II.
If what we're looking at here is a toxic spill, this is seriously bad news.
In the city of Hangzhou, China, a mysterious vortex is emerging in the middle of the Chengteng River. Military analyst Carlo Munoz looks to the location to find a possible explanation. He discovers this is an area with a dark history.
Now, this particular town in China where this river is located, Hangzhou, was actually under Japanese control from 1937 all the way to the end of World War II in 1945.
Towards the end of the Second World War, many weapons were dumped in seas and rivers, especially weapons of mass destruction, which contravened international conventions.
A strong possibility at work here is that this is some sort of explosion underneath the water.
If so, the froth points to one notorious branch of the Japanese military.
The fact that this anomaly on the river surface looks like a chemical reaction, it immediately attracts my suspicions to Special Unit 731, because they introduced chemical weapons to the war in China. And maybe whatever it is below the surface of that river is left over from that time period.
After Japan invaded China, the Japanese military subjected the country's citizens to an onslaught of terror.
The Japanese did not look at Chinese people as being equal, and they looked at them as being disposable people.
Under General Shiro Ishii, the Japanese ran a covert chemical warfare unit in China named Unit 731. Japanese military scientists tested the effects of diseases like bubonic plague, cholera, and smallpox on the local Chinese population, killing hundreds of thousands of people. The unit's methods were twisted and bizarre.
Special Unit 731 engaged in experimentation on Chinese subjects that sought to determine how quickly someone would lose an arm in exposure to frostbite. They engaged in vivisection operations against Chinese men, women, and children. All of this was being done in the interests of pseudoscientific research.
Unit 731 experimented with horrific biological bombs deployed from aircraft, including a bubonic plague bomb which they dropped on at least 11 Chinese cities, leading to outbreaks of the gruesome disease. The unit also experimented with chemical weapons. But when marine biologist Eric Hovland examines the footage, he notices that the foam had expanded to over 8,000 square feet, which leads him to believe that the strange occurrence could be part of a terrifying modern problem.
Within 20 minutes, that foam had expanded. This could be some kind of toxic foam buildup spill.
But if this is toxic, the blame may lie not with Japanese fascism, but Chinese manufacturing. Communist China has a frightening track record of environmental disasters. In the past 20 years, well over 1,000 people in China are known to have died or suffered injuries as a result of chemical explosions at factories here. And the government has had to evacuate many local residents following factories illegally dumping poisonous and hazardous waste into China's rivers.
There have been a lot of toxic chemical spills in China.
In 2005, a series of explosions took place at a petrochemical plant in the city of Jilin in northeast China. Over 100 tons of the lethal chemical benzene seeped into the surrounding river.
Benzene is a highly toxic chemical, not only to humans, but to everything around it. So you want to avoid it at all costs.
Even an amount as small as a teaspoon of benzene is lethal to humans.
Following the catastrophe, the local government had to evacuate over 10,000 people, as well as cut the water supply to 3.8 million residents, depriving a city larger than Chicago of any way to wash, cook, or clean.
If what we're looking at here is a toxic spill, this is seriously bad news.
But geophysicist Cyan Proctor discovers a possible engineering disaster just below the point in the river where the frothing occurred.
The plans do show something else that's really intriguing. I can see that a new subway tunnel is being constructed that goes under the river right at that location.
The bubbles rising up through the river raise the suspicion that explosive gas is leaking into the water as a result of the subway construction. When organic material gets into a river, it settles on the riverbed and decomposes, forming methane gas.
During the construction of the tunnel, you need to add chemicals and lubricants to the machinery. When the lubricants combine with the methane gas, reactions occur and it all comes bubbling to the surface.
But this froth is huge, leading Proctor to wonder if the Chinese government has been entirely honest about the severity of the incident.
This could have ended in a really deadly situation.